Recording in progress.
We'll call to order the St. Joseph Planning Commission meeting for Monday, August 14th. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Next on the agenda is public comment. Seeing nothing, we will move on to the agenda, review and adoption of the agenda. Are there any proposed changes or additions or anything? No? Okay.
I'll move.
We got a motion to approve the agenda. Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Agenda's approved. We have the meeting minutes for the meeting June 12th in front of us as well.
I'll move.
We've got a motion and second. Is there any corrections or additions or comments anybody had? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. And then we have new business. We have a public hearing for a conditional use permit.
Yes, good evening, Commission members and the public. So for the Planning Commission's consideration this evening is a proposal for a conditional use permit for a special event facility. The application was submitted by Cobland LLC, and we'll dive into some of the details here. So the special event facility is going to be proposed to be located at 28617 Jade Road, so just south of Kennedy Elementary. The facility is proposed to be about 14,000 square feet in size, and the facility would be proposed to be located on the northeast corner of that parcel. The subject property is zoned rural residential with a future land use of low-density residential. And how we got to where we are is the council did approve an ordinance amendment in May of this year. That ordinance amendment permits a special event facility as a conditional use in the rural residential district. The Planning Commission did discuss this and that ordinance amendment numerous times throughout the year. And did make a recommendation on that ordinance amendment to deny it at that time, but the council did approve that.
And may I ask, it was the language that was approved, was it special event facility or was it wedding and special event?
Special event
Okay.
facility.
Thank you.
Some characteristics about the subject property. I know there's a lot of lines going on in this map, but essentially these are contour lines. So 2-foot contours. So what's unique to this parcel is the parcel has significant topography. When you look at it from the road up throughout the parcel, there are deviations as much as 40, 50 feet in elevation from the road going into the property, and then throughout the property, having significant hills throughout, and then significant vegetation as well. A little bit about the facility that's being proposed. So again, it's about 14,000 square foot building. It will have some outdoor ceremony space. That's, as you can kind of see. Yep.
That's a single story, correct?
For the facility? I believe so, yes. Yep. So the max height of what we allow in the rural residential district is 40 feet. The applicant is proposing to be at 38 feet, but may even be less than that from my understanding and conversations that we've had. There will be one entrance to the parcel and to the facility. As you can see in this drawing right here, the darker shades are the parking lot areas. So there'll be 3 parking lots with one driveway going to the facility with a drop-off area in the front entrance and then some parking up front as well. The driveway and then the drop-off area will be paved. The 2 or 3 parking lots, they are proposing gravel, and that is part of another action tonight with the proposed variance. A little bit about the interior spaces and how those will be used and planned here. So within the building itself, we have a formal dining area, we have the reception area, we have an indoor and an outside ceremony space, and then we also have a bride and a groom dressing room within those spaces. I know that this is a little bit hard to read, but we'll kind of cover some of this as best as we can. So within the parcel itself, where the event facility is being proposed is where that red circle is. Again, this is in the northeast corner of the property. Part of why that location was chosen, as we understand it, is there's less topography there. There is also a berm that rises up. So the ceremony space will be constructed right next to the bermed area, which rises about from grade to the top of the berm, 10 to 15 feet. The closest home to the subject property is the Mick residence to the north. And that property, if you measure from the corner of the home towards the bottom of the ceremony space, that is about 386 feet. However, the building itself will be about 80 feet 6 inches from that north property line, and then the patio area will be about 60 feet from that north property line, which I tried to depict in that graphic on the right side. So just to kind of paint a little bit clearer of a picture, hopefully, I know that some of these pictures are a little bit hard to kind of get context on where they're taken, but this is a picture of if you're coming up from the driveway entrance right near the entrance of the proposed location of the facility, looking north to the Mick residence. There's the bermed area that's kind of circled in red on that top picture. This picture is taken from the top of the berm looking south onto the residence. So you're at the top of the berm looking where the outdoor ceremony space will be, and then the facility itself, where that clearing is in the trees and vegetation. This picture is taken on the top of the berm area as well, except this is looking north directly to the Mick residence. That red line and where those trees are essentially the Mick property. So a large portion of that vegetation is actually within the north property and not on top of the berm. So the Planning Commission is tasked with placing reasonable conditions on this. Since it's a conditional use permit, it is such as a permit with conditions. And those conditions could be related to location of access points, fencing, screening, berming, restrictions on signs, height, size of buildings, operating hours, noise levels, and other conditions that are related to protecting the public interest. One of the items that staff is recommending is a development agreement, and part of that development agreement does require the applicant to extend water and sewer, and potentially a right turn lane. The right turn lane will be dependent on some factors that we're working with on our traffic engineer in regards to thresholds and traffic that's expected. But the water and sewer extension will for sure be
Nate,
part of that.
Can you go back to that?
Yeah.
Do you have more on that? You said you are working with them. What are the potentials for that? And when does that reach its threshold to have to turn into that right turn lane?
Yep, so basically what they look at is the site itself and then the parking that is expected as part of that site. So they look at the parking spaces and the similar uses that would operate in a similar fashion. So part of that is when they look at, if there's 300 or 400 parking spaces, those different trigger points would then trigger whether a right turn lane is required or not.
How many parking spaces are supposed to be in this event? Or
Yeah, that's
special
one of the
event
big
facility?
factors.
We don't know that yet.
Oh, how many spaces? I don't know that off top of my head.
There's 100 shown currently on the drawing.
Yeah, yep,
So-
so they would follow our parking standards and our code and the
Right,
minimum
so if you're saying
spaces.
the threshold is to get to 300 to 400, there's probably no trigger to put that right turn lane in there? Is what you're
Yeah,
saying?
so, the latest discussion I have had, with our engineer folks is that, it's recommended but not necessarily required as part of it,
Are they
So.
looking at it with the school traffic as well?
correct?
Okay,
Yep,
'cause I
yep.
know that that will have some impact. I mean, a Saturday afternoon versus a Friday afternoon during pickup drop-off see some significantly different traffic in that area.
Yep, for sure. This is a graphic of the water and sewer extension that was included in the development agreement. This shows the water and sewer right now, the utilities end at the entrance of Kennedy, kind of shown in that green and blue at the top. So what staff is recommending is that those utilities get extended along the east side of Jade Road, all the way to the entrance of the facility. Typically in a subdivision or in a plat, utilities would be extended from the beginning of the property line to the end of the property line. We understand this is a unique situation in the fact that there's not a subdivision occurring, that there's a single use. So extending it to the entrance of the facility, we felt was a reasonable request. A lot on this one, but I do want to highlight some of these. So part of this, again, is the planning commission needs to adopt a finding of fact, and staff has included a draft within the packet with conditions. The first condition is just, template language, just stating that the facility has to meet federal, state, local regulations and obtain all the proper permitting. The second one is that the applicant has to submit a site plan application. That's where we ensure that, all the parking standards are met, landscaping, stormwater, impervious surface, and other zoning related items. We also require, again, that development agreement is executed with the water and sewer extension required. That the lighting has to meet all city ordinance, so that includes wall, pole, any lighting that's on site should be cutoff style or hooded, so there's not lighting that is spilling over or polluting onto whether it's the right-of-way or adjacent property. We also talk about parking. All parking has to be met on site. There should be no parking in the public right-of-way. We don't anticipate that to be an issue at all, just given the layout of the site and the location of the parking itself. We also are requiring that the outdoor ceremony space is screened with trees and shrubs. The applicant did include a landscape depiction within your packets showing kind of their proposal on what they would want to do. Again, part of the requirement for that is, or the reasoning for that is that top of the berm has no vegetation up there. So we want to be able to screen that with coniferous and deciduous trees. City, of course, has the right to inspect the property for compliance upon request. We talk about noise. All the noise generated by the facility should meet the city noise ordinance. We do have language in there that talks about amplified sound and music should be within the enclosed building, and sound amplification systems like speakers and similar devices aren't allowed to be placed or generated outside of the enclosed structure. We did have a discussion with the applicant on that one, and I'm sure they'll speak on that, but there are some concerns from the applicant regarding just the language itself. City's liquor ordinance has to be met. We have restrictions on the outside ceremony space not being used between the hours of 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Friday and Saturday. Those hours really mimic our noise ordinance restrictions. We talk about any large gatherings or events of 50 people or more shall be restricted to private events only. And of course, the city council reserves the right to revoke a conditional use permit if they were to, if this gets approved and the council authorizes it, and then there's violations that occur, the city does have the right to revoke that conditional use permit. And then also, if any changes occur, the applicant will need to seek an amendment to the conditional use permit. So that could include a variety of different things, whether it's adding a overnight room, it's utilization of an accessory building for things related to the wedding and event venue, building expansions, holding larger events or gatherings that are open to the public, or other significant change as determined by the zoning administrator and planning commission. So the requested action for tonight, again, the planning commission is tasked with making a recommendation to the council by adopting a finding of fact. The commission may have the right to add, eliminate, or place other reasonable conditions to the finding of fact resolution. And then the city council acts as the final authority on all CUPs. So the 60-day land use rule does apply, so council would need to take action either through approval or denial by September 19th unless a written extension is provided to the applicant stating the reasons for the extension. Right now, tentatively, the CUP would go to the council on September 5th, depending on the action tonight. With that, I'd be happy to answer questions. Otherwise, the applicant is here, and I do believe that they would like to speak as well.
Do we have, sorry, I'll turn that on. Do we have information regarding the occupancy rating of this facility? Like from the building code type thing, I believe event centers are typically A2, if I'm not mistaken. Do we have, is that what we're proposing? Okay. You know, one of the questions I had right off the bat, and this may answer some other questions too, is it seems like a very nice facility, but it seems like a very large facility for what looks like roughly a 300-person wedding or event. Is that kind of is that your anticipated event, is that the anticipated event size, 300? Or, because I believe that with that occupancy rating, it's determined by square footage of the facility is what the capacity is.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, 300 would be on the very high end of it. The purpose of being a single-story facility spread out with so much square footage is that there's no setup or tear down in between, I guess, portions of the event that's taking place. The occupants can move freely from the lobby to gather, then into the ceremony, then back into the lobby, then back into the reception hall, and effectively there's nobody needing to move tables and chairs and shuffle things around, so you have minimal staff needing to be there required each time to facilitate the day's event.
Do you foresee ever having more than one event occurring at the same time, utilizing separate spaces? No, that's not your intent? I mean, I look at it and say, you know, in theory, you could have, you know, where you've got the banquet seating could be one event, and then you could have another one in that ceremony seating. I mean, I don't wanna see all of a sudden there's 3 events going on, there's 900 people, and it's all at the same time, and it's.
We don't either. I mean, to answer that, we don't either. A lot of the partitions in between there, you're really talking about glass walls, so there wouldn't be an ability to separate those parties out
Okay.
from each other if there was an attempt to do that. There's not really, I mean, we can get into like really finite details of why that wouldn't occur, but ultimately, that's not what we're designing it for, and that's not our intent, that's not what we're gonna be advertising, that's not going to be anything in our evolution of concept with this facility.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
What sort of special events are you looking at? Because when this was originally brought, and I'm reading your mission statement, you say it's provide the most seamless wedding day experience in Minnesota. That sounds like your original idea was to do weddings, but now the language that was approved was, I believe it was, special events. So I'm wondering why the change from wedding facility to special events, and what kind of special events are you talking about?
We are wedding focused. The special events, and I don't wanna talk too far out of turn, but that was a staff recommendation to bring up language that I believe had been used in something prior
So that was just what the council had adopted for the language. So if you recall, there was, within the ordinance, there was, staff recommendations and then, applicant, and the language that was adopted was, just saying special event facility.
Weddings, it's now expanded to other kinds of events that aren't identified.
So, so we do have a definition of what a special event facility is, so let me read that to you. So a special event facility is a facility designed to house a celebration, ceremony, wedding reception, corporate function, or similar activity for the benefit of someone other than the property owner that takes place on a periodic basis and involves gathering of individuals for the common purpose of attending a special event. Special event facilities are subject to a use agreement between a private group or individual and facility/property owner.
Nate, your presentation showed the one driveway entrance. It didn't talk about that accessory shed that is also proposed for storage. I know that the application mentioned there's no intention or need for utilities at that location. My question is if the city is extending utilities to the access, is that not also, would that not also be all the way to the storage facilities driveway? Even if it doesn't need access or need utilities, you're still looking at fire protection and things like that, I guess would be one of the questions that I had.
So from my understanding with the accessory building, there's not a need to have the utilities there because it's gonna be basically storage, cold storage. Is that correct?
We're looking at essentially maintenance shop, cold storage type setup. So realistically, any type of utilities or your basic electrical, you would potentially want to have like a pressure washer in there to maintain equipment. But it would really be very minimal, water usage, and it would be generally on the far south end of the property, which is the best access point to that. There's kind of already a little bit of a field access that would maybe have to just kind of open up a little bit, but it's not for any related traffic.
Okay.
So there'd be no bathrooms in the maintenance, I mean, if you're gonna use it for maintenance, where you're gonna do repairs and upkeep and, things like that, it's, like you said, pressure washers, other things, no other water supplies or bathroom, nothing like that in there?
I mean, if we could have a half bath in there, that'd be great, so you don't have to hop on the golf cart and run up to the venue and use it. But it would be, myself personally, out at the land, kind of maintaining the skid loader essentially for, just a facility to put the trailers away, the skid loader attachments to operate the whole thing, just so it's tidy.
Yeah, but it's not just strictly cold storage, so that makes
Correct,
sense.
it is,
It's not
correct, it
cold
is
storage,
not,
it will be
there is,
used as cold
there is
storage and
heated shop, well, and we don't really have it designed out, but in my head, there's heated shop with additional cold storage, approximately 100 by 50, whatever kind of fits in that area. But really just no outside traffic other than my own personal use getting out there.
I was gonna try to pull up that visual of that accessory building and location. If I can get this to load here. I don't know what happened to my packet. But yeah, I mean, the accessory building is on the kind of south portion of the site, from that, here we go. Right here.
Okay. Taking longer than usual. We're working on it.
Gosh,
Like that.
yeah. So here's essentially the entrance and then.
How were the it looks like the plan shows 100 parking spaces. How was that number determined? Was that, pull out a hat, or was that based on any specific requirements?
We met minimum code requirements, and our
Okay,
And I would be remiss to say I knew exactly how those minimum code requirements came to be, but based on occupancy and square footage of facility and use, and then we went more than that because we said, well, what's really reasonable? You know, you can't expect 5 people to show up in a car, so it just needs to be convenient. And I would say on that depiction, if I may, that shed is not far enough south. That was just kind of the limits of that architectural drawing without scaling back so far that it made everything too small to read. So it would really be pushed to the south end of the property line.
yeah, it looks like there is already kind of a clearing there, and like you said, kind of an access, kind of, that had been used in the past, perhaps.
I'm not familiar with the property, but I would say from the farmhouse south, there maybe would be what could be seen as an old hayfield that was used, and we would be all the way on the far south end of that hayfield, if we want to refer to it as that.
Okay, thank you.
Let me ask you too, I know you might have answered this before, but what's your time frame of the expected build and the completion?
Talking with Bradbury Stam, who's construction manager at risk on the project, there's a possibility, I would like to have kind of dirt work done, so to speak, this fall, so that we could have a more finite build start date next April, roughly. Mother Nature can play a role in that, but we would expect 7 to 8 months from start of build to be product delivered to be opened.
So you're thinking November 24 is when you would like operations to open? If everything,
Light would be earlier than that.
Okay.
Just trying to do some of the dirt work this fall and manicure the space, so to speak, and get it ready for that. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done before we get to that point, but if we said late next year, that's a reasonable timeframe.
And Nate, this is probably more a question for you. Will we, as the planning commission, see the site plan and developers agreement again? Or will we only see that if there's variances requested and things like that? Or can we make it a condition that we do see that again? Or,
So, the way that our ordinance is site plan applications get reviewed administratively by staff. If there are deviations or variances that are needed, then they would come forward to the commission. So if they were proposing, something that doesn't meet the ordinance and it's grounds for a potential variance, then the commission would see it. And then your other question, what was your other question again?
are we
Oh,
able to
development
make?
agreement. So the development agreement would get forwarded on to the council, and then the council would have the final authority on the development agreement. So once they execute that, it would not come back.
And do we have the ability to make it a condition that the site plan come to council or planning commission rather than be administratively dealt with? I'm guessing probably not.
I don't think so because of the way the ordinance currently reads.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. I would say though that generally most of what's been submitted, probably 80% or more of what's been submitted is going to be what's on the site plan. I'd say the remainder 20% is related to the stormwater and engineering and calculations. As far as a zoning perspective, what you're seeing is what we'd be reviewing. There might be photometric plans, we'll look at light fixtures, so we'll look at a little bit finer details, but most of what you see is what we will be reviewing.
I got one more. I see in some of your emails that you had, Ken, too, with your anticipated availability to grounds, obviously 7 days per week. You look at, large weddings are likely to happen Thursday through Sunday, which we know most of them, with main focus Fridays and Saturdays. I'm assuming that's your intent. Because now with it, the staff recommendation of special event facility, it's not just weddings. So your hours of operation right now say 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. So, as you're Is your business plan looking to operate during all of those times to accommodate now different special events rather than weddings? That an event might start at 7 a.m. on like a Tuesday, you know, or 8 a.m. for a work function like we talked about, where I want to bring my work over there to your event and I want to use that. And now we're operating at 8 a.m. also in a high traffic area. Would you say that that's your intent for the operating hours, be 6 a.m. to 1 a.m.?
Realistically, within those, the operations of those timeframes, so if we say we're open until 1 a.m., the contract to it's called bride and groom, because that's 99% of what we're talking about. The contract to the bride and groom would say, you're done at 11:59, right? And then everything kind of flowing off the property means you guys are out and gone, right? And that's just kind of the final piece of saying, you're done and gone and off the property. So it's just allowing for some transitional time frame to say people can have their celebration and then move about their merry way. As far as early in the mornings, there's a possibility within the industry of what's called micro weddings or micro events where they do come out for an early morning, let's say it's an October sunrise. Those are typically going to be very minimal sized gatherings that they come out, they use the space, and then they're kind of on their way. It's not in our business plan to be open for Tuesday morning to bring, 250 staff members out to be a facility for them to hold a conference. My experience with attending those conferences, they don't start at 6 a.m. anyway.
Sure.
If they did, I'm not attending. But they're going to be usually a little bit later, so it's more so just the ability to be on and off the premise within those. And I think
Well, and again, like, you know, I
I
would.
was just gonna say 6 a.m. is truly for, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but bride hair and makeup
Sure.
process at their wedding party is like 4, 5, 6 hours sometimes. So it's, I'm in the wedding industry, I know it's a challenge for them in many venues right now to only be able to get access at 8 a.m. So it's more of accommodating that.
Yeah, and I think more my question was, and Ken, I think he answered it, is like, your hours of operation from 6 to 1 a.m. I don't want you to, like, again, have 250 people come out at 10 a.m. for an event on a Tuesday. That's also in a high traffic area where there's school going on too. You see the concern that's, and you explained it correct. I get that. I have a wife. They were there early.
People would potentially
Okay.
be there, even if it's a trickle.
Okay, thank you.
I think probably in interest of keeping the meeting moving, we'll open the public hearing at this time. So at this time, if there's anybody wishing to speak, I'd ask that you step up to the podium and state your name and address for the commission, or for the meeting.
I'll start just to
Yeah.
add a couple clarifying points on the presentation. So Ken Belko, applicant. So one of the charts indicated that there was a patio area based on this, that's up, that patio area extending all the way to the northwest corner of the building, and that is not our intent. It is far closer to the end of the lobby there, so that is not along that whole face, so that I
question too. Yeah, what are the yellow or the orange, like up there, yeah, those,
It's kind of a green space showing outside of the
okay.
window. It's architectural renderings, essentially, or
So what's around that then?
Is it a garage type?
absolutely not, no.
Is it a
These are-
slider
so-
type?
So to kind of give an idea of the outside of the building, yes, architecture has it very tall right now. We are in discussions, we don't necessarily want it that tall. It is 12-foot walls within the facility, and the rest is really roof line. We want it to be kind of a Western European old school look to it, which is a mansard roof line. So those are windows, non-operational. So it's just looking straight into the woods and the berms that are there.
So there's no intent to have any kind of outdoor seating other than the ceremonial area? There's no outdoor seating on the patio where people can sit outdoors, have drinks, that kind of thing?
I think the only thing that we would put out there is maybe a couple high tops that they would stand around.
In the grass? Or just in that one little?
Just in that one patio area.
Which is
We
where?
do not want anything in the grass to the left of that. So, and the purpose of that is that formal dining area, looking through those windows, we don't want to see people out there. We want to see nature, right? And we want to be respectful of that nature. When Nate was alluding to 10 to 15 feet berms, that's near the outdoor ceremony space. As you move further down, so off of that formal dining area, you're really talking closer to 20 foot. And even in some areas on the topography shows 25-foot berms. So it's really tucked down in there, and we want to showcase that, not.
Ken, can I point some out? So you're talking, what are these two spaces? Are these still patios as well?
Those are effectively fire exits.
Okay.
So
And then you're talking this area right here.
correct.
Because I'm just trying to get.
Taller
I'm not tall, right here, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, another inch
So,
on me.
so that space, and then up around where you see those two other pillars that are notated, that kind of corner, call that an L shape, but nothing to the left of the box that you pointed out.
Okay, so we were right, so here.
Would be considered patio space.
Okay,
So that, is that a sidewalk then that extends along there, or that,
It won't,
it won't be there?
be anything, okay.
there won't be anything there. I think that's just as design has developed, looking at those nuances and taking them out.
Okay, so it is here, here, and here.
On the outside of the patio area, if you're gonna have high tops, so you can have speakers with music, or will it be restricted to indoors?
So generally speaking, the speakers would be over by the
There's some kind of a measure on that, when you like the ordinance for the,
So I'll actually read you from our noise ordinance when we talk about amplified sounds. Let me just read that section. Hopefully that will make it clear. So, amplified sounds. No person shall operate or play any electronic device used for the amplification of sound in distinct and loud manner that is likely to disturb the peace, quiet, and comfort of another person at any time with louder volume than is reasonably necessary for hearing of the person or persons who are in the room, chamber, or immediate vicinity in which the device is being operated. Operation of any such amplified sound device in such a manner as to be plainly audible at the property line of the structure or building in which it is located, in the hallway or apartment adjacent, or at the property line if the source is located outside a structure or building, shall be evidence of a violation of this section. So essentially, if you can hear it from the other property line, that's a violation, you know, if you can, so.
Is there a decibel level that you have to measure? I know there's ways to do the decibel level, things like that. Is that?
it's not measurable.
We do not get into that detail, yeah.
One quick, Ken, to the left here, is that where you're gonna have your entertainment in the formal dining area? To the left there, call it a stage maybe, in between your two fire exits?
It's not a stage, that's a fully enclosed atrium.
Okay.
That we're hoping to make out of essentially like a glass-in area so that
so you call it, wedding, right, reception, where would you put entertainment in your formal dining area? To the back or like south?
We could put it there.
Anywhere, depends on probably the floor
Yeah,
plan,
generally
okay.
speaking. Well, a lot of it depends on the occupant load. I mean, if you're putting 150 people in those tables, it may look differently, which I think is more typical, but, I don't see why you wouldn't put entertainment there. If it was, then the speakers are going into the reception hall, they're not pushing out, essentially. And no operable windows on the dining area, the formal dining area. Doors only, I think. Yes, there's no intent to have any. Yeah, we haven't talked about operable windows on there at all. And, yeah, there's no intent to. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak at this time?
Do you want me to go up to the podium, or do you want me to stay right here?
Are you talking about formally, if it's questions from a commission member wanting to speak as a member of the public, you do not formally need to go to the podium. You can just state that you are here speaking
Okay.
on your behalf and just state your name and address, same as.
Okay.
Yep.
So, for the audience, I'm the Mick property, Jade Road. So, I have 1,001 concerns, and as the applicants are sitting here and their family members here every day, or every meeting we've had for the last how many months, to not understand that the proposal started out as one concept, which the city council approved on based on these little tiny accessory buildings in this very first plan, which the majority was parking, to now seeing a 14,000 square foot facility can be quite damaging to, the enjoyment, the property values, everything that I'm looking at. I'm trying to be reasonable in evaluating this as well. And the concerns I have, and it's very difficult coming here, even I think any one of us, is that the information has always been half of the information that we seem to get. It's not clear. This drawing from HMA I had to blow up extensively to actually see dimensions, clearly depicts those spaces as concrete patios. So today we get this. So my concern is, what are we really being told? How are we supposed to effectively put conditions when we don't have detailed, here's our final drawing for approval, because what if this concept changes? I don't think it's fair that they're able to come here and propose all these different reasons. Oh, we're not gonna do events. I think it's ignorant to think that as business owners, they would limit their business to just weddings. Someone comes there and wants to have a business event of some sort or whatever, they're probably not gonna turn them down. So, the hours of operation, I have three main primary concerns are the noise, hours of operation, and I guess four, but the lightings, the 1 AM, with lighting, and some of the city service type items that they're supposed to follow. So when I go to the noise, again, coming in here, can you show the picture of their house, where my house is? So that line, from that exact point of that red line, is my master bedroom. So I'm sorry, you can't get any worse of a part of my house that is closest to the property, closest to the noise and everything else. I've walked this property, I stepped it out, I seen that they had people come in and do the property lines, so now I actually have markers. I have more property than I thought, which is nice. It's over the top of the hill, so it's on their hill. That's a huge concern, because this weekend, I took a boombox thing from Sam's, and I went down to that area where that white trailers are, where we park our trailers. And even with the wind that we had this weekend, you could hear at full sound the music from behind the house, from a boombox. I can hear kids playing in the park, at the ballpark. I can hear the speaker from the school when they say, "Hey kids, good morning," it's whatever day, we can hear it plain as day. They are not nuisance noises. They are kids playing. It's not a problem. What's a problem is 5 p.m. till 10 o'clock at night. Music playing that doors are open. It's a nice Indian summer. It's 70 degrees in September. People are outside and music travels. Conversations travel. So I have a big concern about noise. If we're being told that that's just windows or that other second concept we got, I don't know. I don't have a good feeling about what we're being told, considering we have several different plans. I had, looking at this plan, thought, why couldn't we suggest moving the ceremony rounded section that they proposed, the outdoor, to the east of the indoor one, and move the bridegroom dressing suite to the back side. That way, sound is, for even that reception ceremony is being pushed out towards the street side. The building will be more of a buffer. You know, I've been to plenty of outdoor weddings. If you can't hear the pastor or the officiant, that's kind of the nature of being an outdoor wedding. So I tend to disagree that there's a necessary need for amplified. I get you might play some music. So there's a give and take there. The accessory building. I had to follow code. I was not allowed to put a garage in the front of my primary residence. So I had to spend 20% more and build up the around my house. You can see an area view where the garage, the detached garage is. So to allow an accessory building in front of the primary building, is that not some type of code thing that we would have to look at? Because I had to, as a resident, I was not able to put that in front. That's trying to play fair in that matter there. Hours of operation. Today, we got a public comment from the St. Cloud District 742. And this was my comment all along when they were trying to decide this, was it doesn't fit our rural residential, the area, one bit. But for some reason, no matter what the planning commission voted out twice, by the way, 5-2. The city council had other reasonings. But now, the school, the director of operations, replied, I'm assuming that was Gary, right?
Correct, yeah, so I was gonna read his comments after all the other comments were.
Oh, yeah. So he, his concerns, which are very valid when you're coming from south traveling north on Jade. I mean, I even come up to my house, I'm like, whoa, there it is. It's a blind approach. There's traffic. I mean, I think the school has addressed that many times with vehicles coming that way. You know, what happens to increased traffic with hours of operation? You know, he's proposing that they've done safe routes for school studies, so is he saying they want a stoplight? Now all of a sudden, who's responsible to pay for a stoplight at Jade Road? It kind of snowballs to all these other things that, you know, I'm just asking what happens in that example. I already paid once for that road to be repaired. I will not pay for any other improvements because those improvements are not affecting me in a positive way. So I will not pay for any more. And I don't think that anything that the applicant is trying to do, I should be paying for any more. But I don't know what the city's gonna do. Well, we're gonna have to add, you know, now improve further streets down, you know, past their lot to Jade to the street light. I don't know. I'm just, again, that this whole then the comment with the school is about hours of operation. So if you strictly are saying you're a wedding event venue, then we should not have we should have restriction of hours. Why do you need to be open 7 days a week, 6 a.m. to 1 a.m.? Because you're not gonna have a wedding on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I don't feel that, I think that hours should be restricted. I do want to note that as being this property owner, the applicants have not at one time come to either of myself or the Bechtolds on the other neighboring side to discuss anything. They were asked by Therese, have you come to me? You're shaking your head. Did you come to my house? Did you call me? No, you never approached me in any manner to talk about the building. I don't understand what the comment or the smile is for, because I have never been introduced to you. Again, the previous city administrator had suggested that might be a good idea. And I feel that you're not a resident, you're coming in here, you're basically saying, I don't care what people that have lived here for 20-plus years, we're gonna open up a commercial 14,000 square foot facility, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. Well, I'm gonna fight everything I can, so. I'll leave it for group discussion.
Is there anybody else willing to speak from the public at this time? I guess then I will close the public hearing and we will open it up for commission discussion. Oh, sorry, David.
We have
Yep.
we have the written comments.
Oh, that's right, we have the
read
written
them in the
comments.
record,
Yes, if you could read that.
So, yes, I just want to read this. So this is from Gary Ganji from the St. Cloud Area School District. I believe he's the Executive Director of Operations. So his comments are as follows. There is an elevation in Jade Road that creates a blind approach at the school entrance. The traffic count and congestion at the intersection of County Road 121 and Jade Road was identified as a concern in the Safe Routes to School study. Increased traffic would magnify those identified concerns. The intersection at County Road 121 and Jade Road is not controlled. County Road 121 is not posted as a school zone, thus allowing traffic to progress at highway speeds. Any road improvements on Jade Road by the south entrance of Kennedy School would be disruptive if performed during the school year. Events occurring at the proposed site during school hours would increase traffic volume on Jade Road. That's the comment.
All right. With that, then, I will close the public hearing and open it up for commission discussion. Where to begin?
Well, one of the things that I want to make sure that this is one of its kind, unique in nature, and first of, this being added, obviously, being probably next to it, but concerns of the school, everything that we exercise due caution in making sure that the conditions of, initial uses are what we feel are required, because if we're not thinking about what this could do for other areas, then we're gonna be,
And I agree, I think this is setting a precedent that we need to pay attention to, as far as what we're going to allow in residential area. And what, to what extent the building be, what size of the building, what the hours of the day, and I do believe that there's a need to restrict the activities and the timing, and the amount of people that are gonna be coming to these events. Because, like I said, there's a school right there, there's a residential, it's zoned residential, and it needs to be, monitored.
So I personally think you guys have done a pretty good job, due diligence in what you're doing. It looks like a great facility, but I'd have to agree, my biggest concern is just the hours of operation. It's 6 AM to 1 AM. You do have a school right there. I brought these concerns up a couple times even before, when I was in council, and the first time that you guys came back when you went to do that. I think that's my biggest concern, so I agree that I think we need to limit at least the hours of what you're doing. Not in the property and where you can move stuff, the berms look good. You have something in here that says a mix of coniferous and deciduous trees and shrubs should be planted along the top berm to control noise. Yes, I think you need to do that, but what is the mix? How many is it? How much is it going to reduce the sound to the property to the north, right, or to the south? Or is there stuff in the site plan that says, can you move different ways to go back on to the, call it the south side, to where some of that sound amplifies actually goes towards the highway instead of towards the properties? Is that a possibility? But my biggest concern, and I'm just speaking for me, is really the hours of operation. That's my biggest concern.
And I agree with that. I have a couple of other instances that go back to the wedding venue, which was what I was thinking this was originally was going to be just a wedding venue. Now all of a sudden, it's morphed into ordering to special events, and even to the extent where you could be considered public events. My concern is that we could limit it to weddings and private events and keep the number of attendees at those events limited. That would take care of the activities and the larger group gathering. The other part of it is the hours of operation. I think we can have this discussion about, what those hours should be. The noise pollution, the vegetation, I think, is a good step and is very necessary. That's going to be a part of it. But I'm also wondering if you can have a nicely designed curved wall, a soundproof, a sound barrier type, a sound absorbing wall. I'm thinking of, the Hollywood Bowl, things like that, where you've actually got something behind your fishermen, so that the crowd, the gathering, would be there looking into a bowl type of thing with trees and vegetation behind it. That would absorb more of the sound, so it wouldn't carry it to the big property. And aesthetically, could look very pleasing. So it's something that I would like to see. The light pollution concerns me. As long as the lights are hooded and everything comes down and there's no spotlights, there's no bright lights, we're gonna have something that is easy, it needs to be kept. We can't go out and watch the meteor display because of all the lights in town. So, light pollution is a big concern as far as I'm concerned too, along with the noise and the hours of operation.
well, the tree, that was one thing I forgot to talk about. I don't scrap the trees, especially where they're proposed. That's not gonna do any noise barrier, especially what are we planning on planting them? And it takes 10 years before they get to be anything worth of sound barrier. I could care less about those trees on that berm. Because especially for the ceremony and how that's situated. that the noise is what's happening on that backside, that north corner. And there's a berm there, but when those trees, when it's fall and there's no leaves, there's no sound. And I have looked up sound barrier walls, but I don't know what that means, if that has to be something on the top of the berm. I would imagine so, because you put it down at behind, it's not gonna do anything. But I think it's gonna be very difficult on the sound. I think that, you know, based on our ordinance that you provided for us, in section 1002.02 findings, I mean, this is going to, I know the noise, like I said, kids are playing in the ball field and I can hear them, and you put 200 people, unless you're telling me there's not one single window that opens, but you can't, because they have a patio right out from the ceremony. People are gonna wanna go outside. That's part of your guys' appeal and what you're trying to sell, is it not? It's the nature. You want to, that's what you're promoting. You're promoting, let's have a wedding in nature. People are gonna want to, and I don't think you're gonna be able to stop people. So I'm understanding of that. So that's where I feel like it has to be, what can you guys do to fully prevent that? Because it would be a problem. I would be calling.
Yeah.
And I would be your worst nightmare. And I don't want to be your worst nightmare, and you don't want me to be your worst nightmare.
And you look at, again, the nuisances and the offenses when you're talking about 10,002, right? Like,
Yep.
I agree, I don't hate your idea of a wall, but how can you reassure, or I know you've got site plans, nothing's built, right? Nothing's set in stone. How can you rearrange it to notify, like, nothing is gonna go out that back way? Does it go out the front, again, towards the south? Does it go towards the north? But I look at this noise ordinance too, and I just think it's funny, if you look at subdivision 1, horns and other signal devices, no person shall sound any horn or signal device on an automated motorcycle, bus, or other vehicle except in a dangerous signal to traffic warning. I have honked my horn many times in my driveway, so I saw that, but I agree with you, the noise is a big concern with, especially putting your business in a rural residential, and I agree with that. So again, I still stand by the hours of operation, or can your site design be reconfigured to where the noise is going towards the highway or not towards any of the other residences, towards the school? That's just a question I pose, so.
Looking at, vegetation and the berm for screening, vegetation doesn't provide much for sound. It just doesn't. It's more of an aesthetic and more of a visual screening. I get that. Looking at that berm and kind of the elevations that I saw on there, that top of, you've got like kind of the rainbow look of what I'm assuming is kind of tiered seating going up the berm at the ceremony area outside. The top of one of the plans had a retaining wall that showed top of wall being about 1.5 feet below the top of that berm. There's no way you can tell me if there's people on that berm, there's no way sound isn't gonna carry to the property line.
So the two highlighted arches
Yes,
is seating.
okay,
Above that is not seating. So effectively, call it the minister would be in that circle, which then that berm is approximately, let's just average it at 12 feet above that minister's feet. There's 2 rows of seating there. The rest is berm and vegetation
Okay.
below the wall. So you're really talking about the top of heads don't get above that berm.
okay.
And that was the point, was to withhold that sound behind that berm as much as possible.
The building location where it's at, is that just because it's the easiest spot on the site to build? I mean, is there any could it be moved? Could it be moved away from the property property line on the north to a different spot. I mean, I know the contours were very steep in certain areas, but I don't know if anybody looked at that. Was there an alternate location that it could possibly be located so that it's not such proximity, you know, to the property line, things like that?
Yeah, please.
So no, absolutely not. It's not the cheapest place to build it. It's not the easiest place to build it. It's the most respectful place to build it. And when we looked at that, we said, if our sound is amplifying to the northeast, that is away from the residence that's there. It's actually pointing more towards the school that's there and across the driveway entrance of the property. The use on the west end was fully enclosed, so we took that into account. And again, there's a 20 to 25 foot berm
That's what I mean.
from that ground level up to the Nick property based on the topography that has been shown by O'Malley and Crone. So these aren't guesses, these are actual contour lines. There were attempts to reach out to see if we could talk about actually putting a fence on top of there. Attempts to reach out were not returned, and it was through Therese that we said, let's connect. So why that disconnect was there, or why that was disconnected, we don't know.
She never talked to me about
And
it.
our intent was every single time we talk to staff, and I don't know that.
She said she told you guys to reach out, but it doesn't matter. She never.
And we did, but until we actually can lose leaves and run a string on top, our intent is actually to look at putting a sound barrier of sorts even on top of that berm. And the reason it went from a smaller box to a bigger box is we went from a 2-story facility down to a 1-story facility to again respect the other property that they wouldn't be looking out any windows and into windows, into ceremony space, into lit anything. We're keeping that light pollution down below as well. So if we can get another fence on top of that berm, because we don't know where it's owned, because we have survey points to the west of it and to the east of it, but we can't run a string right now.
Yeah, the furthest part, the berm is on my property and the cutout, like, if I step down the hill, I'm still on mine, so it cuts across. So I'd have to give you easement to put that on.
It cuts into it, right? So that was our discussion, is how can we then, again, continue to be respectful? So if we draw a line between the two corners of the properties, her southeast and our northwest, trying to find a space on top of that hill to add some type of a barrier, right? And look at that, even though we're designing this to, again, be as respectful as possible and send our noise away from that residence as much as possible. And part of having that building there is you do generate noise from people driving. Even if they're not honking, when they're driving in and out of there, there's noise there. So we keep the parking lot noise away from that, because that's where people get out of their vehicles and they're talking and they're congregating, or when they're getting into their vehicles, they're talking and they're congregating. So when we've designed this with the architects, we've kept all of that as paramount to say, where does it belong within here? Our initial thought was on the west side, but it was too intrusive.
I think that parking, they're coming at one time and leaving at one time is completely different.
But it is.
I would say that it's,
Are leaving at midnight, that would be talking and conversing
Yep.
and talking about other.
well, leaving at, yeah. But I still think that there is a possibility for that ceremony section to be outdoor, to be moved to the east.
So you're saying move it to where your
Move it to where your bridal
groom and
suite.
bridal spot, like, can you flip it? So now it's back over here and now your sound is going towards the highway. Right? I mean, that's where it would be pointing towards.
And there's a way to put vegetation and plants to make it still look.
So you couldn't see it from both.
Well, you won't see it from the road at all, because there's trees and it's down further. You won't see it from the road. I'm just saying, I could see there, because people driving in, it's driveway access, but this is where, again, conversations early can and potentially maybe will save people a lot of money by having ideas prior, but I don't know. What do you want to try and have us decide everything tonight?
So there's a couple options. So the commission could, some of what I'm hearing are tweaks to the resolution and the conditions. Like I heard restricting to private events only, hours of operation, if there was consensus on those items, that you could still move forward with adopting a resolution with tweaks. If you need more information, particularly tied to like what I'm hearing is the sound resistant wall, and you want to see depictions of what they would propose, there's the possibility that they could, we could call a special meeting in 2 weeks and they could come back with those details. I would make sure that whatever we're asking, that there's reasoning behind that, so if it's a sound barrier, it's to prevent the sound. If, there's gotta be reasonings as to far as what we're asking and why we're asking it of the applicant.
So Nate, your second, the second request is a motion of the finding of the facts of the resolution, right, of 2023. You would still like a motion with that, but with conditional uses of, call it, hours of operation and some different noise.
If there's a motion on that resolution, then there should be tweaks, if the commission agrees to tweaks, stated. And then if there's a motion to move that forward. Otherwise, if there's a consensus that, hey, we need more information and would like to see a detailed plan from the applicant that they're going to screen the north side more effectively, and we want to see barriers, we want to see greater detail, then I would say that the motion is to table for and come back for a special meeting. And I would strongly advocate a 2-week turnaround so we can keep the project moving forward and not have to run into any of the 60-day issues in that. Yeah.
So, I guess, one of my concerns is that I don't feel like there's enough information here to be able to adequately put conditions on it. We don't have any, sections of the building to see where the top of that building falls in relation to the land and the berms and the visibility and sight lines. We're still talking about possible different scenarios for sound walls. We're still talking about,
Site plans that
yeah,
change.
site plan, there's patio that isn't there now that was there, and I get that design evolves and changes through the process of all this, and you don't wanna get too far before you have your approvals and things like that. I understand that process. But I mean, we're even talking things like, the city has proposed a water and sewer extension. It sounds like the applicant would like to see it somewhere else. I think there's some things, and I personally have some more, I guess, detail-oriented, site planning, utility engineering-y questions. My background as a civil engineer, that's the stuff that sticks out to me. I've got some of those questions that I don't think I have adequate information to review at this time. I guess with that being said, I'd like to make a motion to table acting on this resolution. I don't have the number in front of me.
So two motions.
So just to clarify, so to table it, and then the request of the applicant is to, 1, provide elevation drawings, 2, provide depictions of the sound wall or barrier on the north side, 3, clarify the tweaks in the patio area on the north side, and then 4, I am struggling with that. Are you wanting to see stormwater related, like ponding, or what kind of?
No, I mean, I guess just a more, perhaps it's engineers' comments pertaining to the developer's agreement, or something that gives a little bit more, you know, right now I look at it and say we could approve this and say utilities will extend, but where are they gonna extend, how are they gonna extend, where does private utility, public utility start and stop? That kind of stuff, so looking just more for a more complete site plan submittal package, I guess, was kind of where I was looking at it. But yeah, definitely the elevations from a sight line and, you know, kind of what we're looking at with the topography of the site, the height of the building, you know, view from the parking and road.
I think more like on this, the ordinance too, like in the conditions, like designated sites for open spaces, they kinda had it, then they didn't, now is it one of, you know, I think just more detail, there isn't anything on this, labeled on this second one. And I agree, we have all these questions, but is that the plan, or is it another plan?
Yeah, I mean, with this not coming forward to us again and just being reviewed by staff, it's been a point of discussion over a couple of years now. Things have evolved through the course of the process, you know, we went from, I mean, I was shocked to see that it was a 14,000 square foot building. I totally get the idea that it's one level and that makes all kinds of sense, and sprawling it so you're not taking down and moving things, and from an operational standpoint, I get that, but I was shocked to see a 14,000 square foot facility proposed on here, cause based on what we were talking about, I never envisioned that. So I mean, I feel like things have changed and evolved consistently through this process, and we still don't have a full picture of what we're looking for, or what the information, we don't have a full picture of the information that's being presented to us. So I guess I would like to see, some sort of elevations and sight lines that show building height, berm height, line of sight type of items. Maybe just more detailed, engineering site plans as far as what the city is going to require for utility extensions, or what the agreement will be between the city and the applicant, better discussion on that.
Cause you know, even on that site plan too, there's gonna be some clearing, I'm imagining they're gonna be
Yeah, I
bringing
mean,
it
there's-
down, so we still don't even know, you're guessing the berm height, but it's all over the place from being dug out, so I mean, you know, that may help them in saying, hey, yeah, it's gonna be taken down this far to get to the lowest point, I don't know, but
Well,
we don't
and
know
even-
at this point.
And even things like, I'm looking at this drawing in front of us now with the sewer and water extension, and it's showing one access, whereas the original applicant materials showed two, plus the storage unit, the stuff in our packet, so it just, kind of a clarification of what the site plan is.
And if I may, as far as the development agreement and the sewer and water extensions, and that typically, I'm not sure what the past practice has been here at the city of St. Joseph, but typically that's more in the purview of the city council. That's often not completed before this gets, before site plans and conditional use permits get approved. That's more of a longer term negotiation between the applicant and the city council for the long term.
But we can state something like the utilities need to extend to the access point, or something like that in our conditions.
You can make that recommendation,
yeah.
but it's ultimately up to the
But it
council.
ultimately comes down,
yeah.
right,
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
like, okay. So I guess my motion, I would like to make a motion to table the decision pending the additional information we talked about, the berming, you know, kind of the sound barrier details, whether that is, you know, the actual height of the berm, construction of a sound wall, whatever the proposed noise mitigation things might be. You know, cause the talk of a sound wall or a wall, sign, fence, barrier is the first I've heard of it today, was at today's meeting, that they even looked at anything along that property line. So what was it, the sections, the noise wall type stuff?
The revised patio depictions on the
Yeah,
north
the
side.
revised kind of site plan
Yeah,
layout.
cause that would help with light too, cause if you
Yep.
have a patio out there, you're gonna have lights and.
Yep.
Yep.
And then as far as the tabling, so
And then recommending a 2-week return visit.
yeah, so I would suggest that the commission reconvene on the 28th, so exactly 2 weeks at 6 o'clock. If that works for everyone,
I think that,
no,
no,
the whole week.
pretty much. But I have to look at my calendar, I might be back, I might not, it just,
I'll be here.
Okay. Zoom might be an option. Okay. Okay.
probably not, unless I can get one of those cars that drive themselves.
Well, I second your table and meet in 2 weeks.
okay, we have a motion and second, any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to say one thing, okay, as a council. I would be, as a council, if I was on the planning commission, I wouldn't know all this. But if I would want to receive something from the council that the planning commission was tasked to give, the council some things that they should be on the CUP. Because the council will go through the CUP, and the planning commission is in the advisory to advise the council what type of stipulations they would like to see on the CUP that the council will discuss. We haven't done any of that, we just hashed out the last 2 years of the negativity of this whole project. We haven't come up with any opinions going forward from the planning commission, what that CUP should look like. That's where I'm at.
Well,
I think the
We're
goal,
not gonna discuss whether, it should be there, should not be, whether it's residential or this or that.
Just the site in general.
right,
from what I'm,
Gonna do.
The task at hand.
is this site
Yeah.
specific?
Attach a CUP from the planning commission to the CUP decision that the council makes.
Yep,
and from what I'm hearing is
Here
in 2 weeks, when we come back, when we have that information that the commission is asking, that the commission will, likely at that time be able to take action on the resolution.
on
and
the
the
hours
co-
of operation, the,
Correct.
the requirements of the conditional use permit.
Yep, so that resolution will be, likely
Finalize
acted
that
on.
finding of fact, conditional use permit
Yeah.
thing, so. Okay, with that, those in favor? Aye. Opposed? One nay. All right, thank you. That carries. The next, item on our agenda. Sorry, lost my agenda. The public hearing for a variance.
Yes, so, given the action on the CUP and tabling that, the CUP really needs to, be taken, action or recommendation prior to the variance.
Yep.
So staff would suggest that this variance is also tabled to that meeting. But essentially what is being proposed as part of that variance is there's 3 parking lots on the site, and those 3 parking lots are proposed to be gravel in surface. The city code requires all parking spaces to be hard surface, concrete, asphalt pavers. So they're requesting a deviation from that. But I would strongly suggest that we table this one.
And one thing that would go with that site plan, I know, the applicant mentioned possibly some changes to the location of some of the parking now that they have additional topo. I would love to see those changes reflected in the site plan as well, just so that we can do that. But I guess I'd make a motion to table the decision on the variance until the, conditional use permit is acted upon. Motions and seconds. Any discussion? Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And one nay. With that, we will table that till our special meeting, or until the CUP is acted on. Then our next item, it looks like it's just some discussion on murals and some other discussions.
As far as murals, really just want to have a kind of a kickoff intro discussion. The CVB is kind of looking at potential ways to increase art in the community, increase tourism in the community. In the past, the CVB has invested in things like billboards and other types of, advertisement. The Central Minnesota Art Board does have grants that are provided to communities and artists for things like murals or art-related events. So our code is essentially silent on murals right now. So if it's silent on it, then it's prohibited. There were a couple examples in the packets from what other communities have done for murals. Haven't put a ton of really time and effort into the mural topic as of yet. So I just want to get kind of initial maybe reactions to the idea of, looking at a code amendment or a process to formally allow murals. Some communities just amend their sign ordinance and insert language in murals for that, so there's clear expectations on, what a mural is, where it can go, sizes. Others take an approach where they add a public art ordinance. I would say that's a lot more comprehensive. That's gonna detail not just murals, it's gonna detail art installation and a variety of different things. Maybe eventually that's where the community goes, is with a public art ordinance. But, for now, I think looking at the sign ordinance and potentially what we could maybe do or not do within that would be the direction that we'd probably head. So I guess it's really just discussion. We'd come back with greater examples and more details of what other communities have done. But, just want to get some feelers out there on the topic.
So CVB is looking, what are some of the grants, what are some of the funding that they can get, off the top of your head?
Through the Central Minnesota Art Board.
How much money, do you know?
I think it's like a 25% match, 75% of it's covered. And I'm not sure like the max amount that you can request. I think it's a certain pot of money each round, and then whatever they choose from that pot is what gets funded.
Have you specifically had anybody reach out about murals possibly?
We've had discussion at the
Certain
CVB.
businesses,
So
or just the CVB?
yeah. So I would say there's a member that has a connection to an artist. So I guess what they're trying to do is trying to first get, well, what does the cost go into a mural, right? How much you got to typically pay an artist. I think the key for amending the code would be defining a mural so it's clear, and then also a process. Some communities will have the planning commission or another type of committee review a mural to make sure that it meets the standards and expectations and goals of that ordinance, and then recommend, approval or denial based on that. I think there just has to be some standards, so otherwise we get into a gray area of, what's a sign, what's a mural, messaging on the sign. There could be controversial things that are depicted that maybe not every member of the public likes. So, I guess, yeah, just Google, murals, in Minnesota or whatever, and you'll get some examples out there where there's been some controversy. So, I guess really, what I'm asking is just, permission to continue looking at, potential ordinance language, to allow murals, if that's the flavor of the commission too.
Continuing to look at them, I do
Yep.
think there needs to be a separation between advertising and artistic murals.
Correct.
They're two very distinct things. And I think, trying to include it in the same ordinance with advertising might be problematic. You may want to set it aside and make it a separate artistic, something for art, because it could later become statues. It could be something in art. It could be painting murals on a wall.
I do
Yeah.
like the idea of starting with a public art ordinance, even if it really only addresses murals at this stage. It allows you the ability to, A, separate it from the signs and not muddle that one up, but B, also allows you to expand as needed. So I guess that would be my recommendation
Yeah.
anyways.
I think
Yeah,
that's
That is good. I mean, it's a great idea because it lends us to other opportunities as well, like you said, with public art installations. And that is very, very common approach that a lot of communities will take, is that comprehensive one, so.
With that, we also have landscape requirements in industrially zoned properties.
Yes, so staff had received a few concerns regarding our required landscape requirements. So for commercial and industrial property, we require a certain amount of trees and shrubs per square foot of building. Right now, our language, depending on the size of the building, if you have a 200,000 square foot building, well, that's quite a number of trees and shrubs. So I guess the question to the commission, and I provide a couple examples of, what maybe a tweak to the ordinance could be and how you could tweak it. There was a lot of thought that I believe was put into the ordinance. It's really also about, how nice do you want the industrial park areas to be? I think there should definitely be a bare minimum and like a good standard. 'Cause when we take developers out and tour different potential sites, first impressions are a lot. They really are. And I think we're a community that has high standards and high values for a reason. So I'm not necessarily advocating to change, but it does make sense to have a conversation on what our requirements are specifically in the industrial zoned areas.
I think you're right. I think our ordinances have some strict requirements for building materials and things like that to provide the desired aesthetic within the city. The landscaping goes with that. I get it, it's also not just the planting and the expensive planting, but there's also the maintenance and the eyesore when the trees die and so there's definitely some give and take. Is there the ability to still require X amount of trees, but have them allocated to other spaces?
What do you mean by other spaces?
Like, you're still required to provide X amount of trees or the dollar value of X amount of trees, but a portion of those could be allocated to, say, the East Park.
Oh, gotcha.
I mean, I know like developers can, in some instances, developers will play park fees. I mean, I don't know if that's even a remotely
Yeah,
possible
I
thing.
feel like
but
it
it'd be
might be more of a development agreement type of, versus an
Yeah, I mean,
ordinance
I
change.
don't know.
But
Yeah.
that's the idea though.
I guess I can speak to that. It is out there, but that would be more in your development agreement. They require, like park dedication. And a lot of times it'd be up to the city's choice. They could either take a certain amount of property
Yep.
for park dedication or a
Fee.
a fee for improving parks in other places there as well. That's more geared towards residential. I have seen it for commercial as well, but that would be something that would have to be really written into our ordinance. So,
Okay.
it is out there, but it's not, for commercial and industrial, it's not overly common, but I have seen it.
Okay.
So this is, you're saying this is industrial, so the park, industrial park?
Yeah, yep,
So-
any industrial zone properties.
So, yeah, I mean, when you're looking at that and they're requiring square foot of building, all of a sudden you have 160 trees. Are they restricted on watering? Cause, all of a sudden you're requiring all these trees, now they have to have irrigation. All of a sudden we're in a drought, these trees
571
die, now
shrubs.
they're responsible to pull out trees that nobody sees and replant. I can see the point of having the front aesthetics of the park or the business park. So you might have to say that the visible front, entrance should have a certain portion, but why should they have 160 trees in the back of the building? That no one sees that they're,
And 571 shrubs.
that they have to try and irrigate, which now is also creating water problems, so
Yeah, and I don't know if you can set like a minimum, a base minimum of what you need, and then, go up on square footage, yeah, but I do agree, it seems excessive to have, to require that much, cause maintenance realistically isn't gonna happen anyway, I mean, it's almost impossible to irrigate that, and then what happens when they're dead? Is there any stipulations for replacing those again, or do they just get cut down and they go away anyway? I'd rather see more better quality than, or, excuse me, less and better quality than more and
Right.
half dead, I guess, or.
Because I mean, now you gotta have a gardener and pay,
Right.
expensive
Yeah,
weeding,
it's,
I mean, just.
So, kind of a couple of different ideas too, and what we put in here, where in industrial properties, the minimum number of trees or shrubs should be half of what's required by the ordinance. So, you figure one tree for every 1,250 square feet of total building floor area. So, if you have a 100,000 square foot building, whatever those requirements are in half. And another option is where we talk about capping the requirements. This is an arbitrary number, but we put in 100,050 square feet of building area. So anything building that's above that, they don't have to meet, those minimums, but they have to meet the minimums up until that square footage amount. So
The other side of that is you're putting a 200,000 square foot building on a 15-acre lot.
right.
So, I mean, there is land area. But I get so there's gotta be some sort of,
Is the land area gonna be a park?
well, no, I get that.
For potential expansion?
I think it's pretty important, I saw this on the agenda, I went out and looked at industrial parks and just Googled and started browsing industrial parks. And almost all of them were saying more is better, not less. The more green space you can create, the more, when you start to put together a site plan, you've got vegetation, you've got a good idea for where you're gonna put the trees and the shrubs. Maybe not in the back of the building, if it butts up to another industrial building and the public doesn't see it. But when you're driving through the industrial park, you said it yourself, Nate, you're trying to bring somebody in, and you wanna impress upon them that we've got a really nice industrial park, and they don't see the trees and the vegetation and the landscape. They're gonna say, well, this is nothing. You wanna impress your clients when you bring them to your plant, you wanna impress your customers when they come to your plant or your operation, and it's a good reflection of the city. So I don't know what the exact number is. I don't know that you put a number of, we need this many trees for this many square feet of whatever. I think it's really critical to take a look at the entire landscape plan, especially when the public sees it on the roadway. And these people wanna have a nice building, they wanna have a nice front to their building. So I think it's important just to say, instead of putting, numbers are important, I get it, you need to have something to start with. But I think it goes back to the landscape plan, that say, we want something that's really gonna be artistic and it's gonna really draw people in and make it look nice, like a neighborhood, not like an industrial park that we all think of. It should look like you're driving through a neighborhood.
To some degree. It's still an industrial park. You're not getting resident, or retail traffic through there. You're getting people stupid through there, but I don't know, you're typically not getting you're not commercial, County Road 75 traffic front. So
I
think
guess
there's a-
I'd be open to looking at what we can do to be more reasonable, but I think you're right, if you're requiring them to plant in areas that aren't gonna be seen, aren't gonna be maintained,
How can we make it where
it
it's
really doesn't make sense.
a front-facing
I'd rather have
pest?
two or
Yeah.
trees that might actually stand a chance of being maintained.
correct, more quality than quantity.
Than see all
Yeah, as long as they're taken care of. I'd rather almost see them less, and then if they die, replace them, so that they're still growing, rather than having a whole bunch of dead ones around anyway.
Yeah.
So, I think it's definitely something worth continuing to look at.
Okay. Does the commission care if we look at other communities and what their requirements are, or no, let's just? Okay, okay, okay. Okay, we'll do that then. Okay.
Maybe we'll see that we're way beyond what other cities require.
Okay. If that's the consensus, then that's what staff will do.
With that then, is there any old business?
No, I don't think so.
Any other business?
No.
With that, I will make a motion to adjourn. I second. We have a motion and a second. All those
that means the microphone's on.